For its first 40 years of existence, Epcot did not have a roller coaster. It was not only the last park at Walt Disney World to get a coaster, but it was the last Disney theme park worldwide to get a coaster. It was long overdue. That all changed in 2022, and it changed in a big way. This year, Epcot received Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. This ride combines the theming Disney is known for with a coaster that is both a prototype and a record breaker. All these reasons are why I think it's now the best coaster at the Disney parks, and I'll explain why in this review. 2 roller coasters were once planned for Epcot's World Showcase area. Both would have been mountains. The ride would have looked like Disneyland's Matterhorn with a layout spiraling around and through a mountain, except the ride system would have used the side-by-side seating found in the Space Mountains outside the Florida park. The first one would have been a Switzerland pavilion that would have taken place in the Matterhorn. This was cancelled because Disney didn't get funding they wanted from the Swiss government to sponsor a pavilion. The second would have been a Mount Fuji themed coaster in the Japan pavilion. This was cancelled because the sponsor was slated to be Fujifilm, and it's one of the rivals of Kodak who already sponsored an attraction across the park and Journey into Imagination. In 2017, Epcot closed Ellen's Energy Adventure and the entire Universe of Energy Pavilion. Shortly thereafter at the 2017 D23 Expo, Disney announced that a Guardians of the Galaxy attraction would be replacing it. More details were provided at the 2018 D23 Expo. Disney confirmed this would be the world's longest indoor roller coaster. It would be a prototype spinning coaster from Vekoma. But unlike other spinners where the vehicles spin like a top, the cars and Guardians would have a controlled rotation as to direct guests in specific directions during the show scenes. Guardians was slated to open during Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary celebration, which was supposed to mean 2021. However, the COVID-19 pandemic adjusted both those plans. The pandemic caused a 1-year construction stoppage on this ride, leading to it being delayed until May of 2022. But it technically did open during the resort's 50th anniversary celebration, because Disney adjusted the dates of the event to span from 2021 all the way to 2023. Disney purchased Marvel in 2009, and this brand has been an absolute cash cow for Disney. It has earned over $25 billion worldwide at the box office, plus all the other branding and licensing, so it only seemed natural that Disney would want to bring a superhero-themed attraction to their parks. Both Paris and California received Avengers-themed lands, but you will not get that in Florida. Back when Universal opened Islands of Adventure in the late 1990s, before Disney owned Marvel, they signed an agreement to have exclusive theme park rights to the Marvel characters east of the Mississippi River. This led to Marvel's Superhero Island, which is still a highly popular land to this day. Even when Disney acquired Marvel, they could not terminate the contract, and it is in Universal's best interest not to allow Disney to use Marvel at the Orlando resort. But Disney found a loophole. The agreement only applied to characters already referenced in Marvel's Superhero Island. While the land had the major heroes in the Avengers and Fantastic Four, it did not include a single reference to Guardians of the Galaxy. Even amongst comic book fans, this was a relatively obscure set of heroes many had not heard of. They only became known in 2014 after Disney took a big risk making a movie based around them, and it was wildly successful. As you approach the attraction, you'll see a cool looking spaceship in the entry pavilion, and then you'll see a futuristic building in front of you. This is what houses the queue line, pre-shows, and station. Set way behind this is a far larger sky blue building. This covers over 200,000 square feet. This coaster is so large that it needed a building larger than a football field and roughly as tall as Spaceship Earth to contain it. Fortunately, it was placed in such a way that it isn't too evident on Epcot's skyline unless you're in the parking lot or looking directly across the lake at World Showcase. The ride's theme is that guests enter the wonders of Xandar Pavilion and learn about the history of Xandar, which is the capital of the Nova Empire. It's a meta theme for Epcot, but it is done well. The first room of the queue is the Galaxarium, which is a planetarium for galaxies. It is a big open room where an AI system gives you facts about Xandar. The next section of the queue passes miniature displays, spaceships, and Nova Corp uniforms. Then it ends with a video recording discussing the events of the first Guardians film with the team. I think this is the best part of the queue line. but you can only see it for a minute or two if that. This is located at the very end of the line, and I wish you had more time to see it because I've only seen short bits of the sequence, but it's a good amount of humor you'd expect from the Guardians. Overall, this queue line is very cool, especially if you're a Marvel fan. But as of this recording, you can't just get in line. This ride uses the virtual queue system. Ever since Rise of the Resistance, Disney has been using the system for their newest attraction in the United States. It is intended to prevent the latest and greatest ride from having multi-hour waits. However, this turns the ride into a pseudo-lottery, although I would argue there's definitely skill involved, as it's more or less a game of fastest finger. I'm not a fan of this system. It restricts how many times you can experience the attraction, and can potentially lock guests out from riding it if they have technological issues or lose track of time. I get why Disney does this to minimize how many people are stuck in this one line, but it can lead to a lot of stress. I suspect this system will be discontinued sometime in the next year, but in case you're riding it in the near future, here is an overview of the system, and this is how it runs as of mid-November 2022. Disney has changed the rules before, so feel free to skip to the time on screen if you want to bypass this part of the video. There are 3 times of day when the boarding groups are released: 7 a.m., 1 p.m., and 6 p.m. The 7 and 1 o'clock releases are available to all day guests. To be eligible for the 7 a.m. drop, you must have a valid Epcot reservation. Then you can use the My Disney Experience app to secure your spot in the virtual queue. This is before Epcot opens, so it can be done anywhere. It can be done at your hotel room, or even in another state. It just matters that you reserved Epcot for the day. The 1 p.m. drop requires you to be physically inside Epcot. This is why you'll see a bunch of people staring at their phones like zombies around this time. The 6 p.m. drop is a special one. This is for resort guests applicable to the extended evening hours. You are allowed to get an additional return time for this event even if you already got one earlier in the day. When you enter the My Disney Experience app, there's a section called Virtual Queues. You can then click Join Virtual Queues. Go to the one for Guardians of the Galaxy. 1 hour before the release times, you can go in to confirm your party. You want to make sure everyone you're visiting the park with is part of this group. Those who are will get a boarding group when the time comes and you go through the process. If it's incorrect, you can go use the edit option. I recommend setting 2 alarms. Set one alarm that is 1 or 2 minutes before the release time. This is your signal to enter the My Disney Experience app to get ready. Go to the Guardians virtual queue once again, hit Confirm Party again. At the bottom, you will see a button that says Refresh. Your second alarm should be for the release time. The instant your alarm sounds and your phone says the designated time, start spamming the refresh button. It should turn into Join Virtual Queue. Do not read what it says, just quickly click on it. On the next screen, click Done and it'll tell you what your boarding group is and the estimated time until it's called. Multiple people in your group can try, but each member will only get 1 reservation. Whoever goes through first will get it. Boarding groups for the 7 a.m. release can disappear in seconds, but using my method, you can get an early return time. I've gotten Group 1 a few times. Times tend to stick around a bit later after the 1 p.m. release, but you'll still want to grab one as quickly as possible just to be safe, especially if you're visiting on a busy day. Once your time is called, you officially have just an hour to return. If you return during this time, your Magic Band or park ticket will scan green at the entrance. If you arrive more than 15 minutes after your window ends, it will scan blue. At this point, it's at the discretion of the cast member if they'll admit you. But from what I've seen and heard, they will admit anyone with a boarding group as long as it had already been called. I found that out firsthand. On that note, the estimated return times can be inaccurate. We had Group 5 and the callback time was estimated at 100 minutes, which meant it would have started 10 minutes after the park opening. That made sense. However, our boarding group was called a half hour before the park even opened. I have heard the ride is tended to open early most days, so keep that in mind if you get an early boarding group. If you have one later, just keep an eye how the groups are progressing through the day, because that'll tip you off when you'll likely be called. The wait times with the boarding groups are really short in the morning. I've waited just 15 to 20 minutes max at that time, but some of the afternoon times have had me wait 2 to 3 times that. As I mentioned earlier, I suspect the virtual queue system will be eliminated soon. The biggest reason it stuck around for as long as it did with Rise of the Resistance was that ride's poor reliability. It was eliminated faster in rides like Ratatouille and Spider-Man Web Slingers that had high uptime. Guardians has been extremely reliable and it has great capacity for a roller coaster. When this attraction opens a standby line, I suspect this ride's queue situation will be similar to Avatar Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom. Most people will likely head here first thing in the morning. Not only is it the park's newest and arguably most popular attraction, but it is one of the closest ones to the main entrance. If you have early entry, this will be the time to experience Guardians. Currently, all Disney hotel guests are admitted into Epcot a half hour early. Lightning lanes do not start until the official operating hours, so the standby queue can move 3 or 4 times faster during this time period. That is how much capacity is typically allocated to lightning lanes. If you don't have early entry, I suspect this queue will already be backed up by the time you enter. Therefore, I believe you'll want to enter the queue line closer to closing. As long as you're in line by closing time, they'll let you on the ride. There are 2 primary benefits to this approach. 1, the wait time is almost always comically overinflated near closing time. 2, lightning lanes stop at park close, so the standby queue will move much faster like it did in the morning. The other method to experience Guardians with a short wait is to use a paid lightning lane reservation. This is not on the Genie Plus service, so it will cost each guest an extra $14 to $17 depending on the day. These are made available to hotel guests only at 7 a.m., and then all guests with a valid Epcot reservation can book them starting at park opening time. These have not depleted quickly thus far because of the virtual queue option, but I suspect these will become more popular, such as the Rise of the Resistance lightning lanes, once virtual queue is discontinued. On some days, those for Rise of the Resistance are swallowed up entirely by hotel guests before the park even opens. Along with the cost, the downside with this approach is that you do skip the queue line. The biggest benefit of the individual lightning lanes currently is that guests can use this to experience the coaster twice per day, once with the virtual queue, and once with the skip the line service. Guardians is 2 pre-shows back to back. These are great sequences that establish the ride's story. If you want to skip what happens, please click the time on screen. The first pre-show is Glenn Close returning as Nova Prime. She explains that Xandarians have used a piece of technology known as the Cosmic Generator to create jump holes throughout time and space with the purpose of sharing their culture and technology with other planets. Terry Crews then makes a surprise appearance as Centurion Tal Merrick. This is a character created exclusively for the ride. He was exceptional in this role. He got a lot of laughs from his delivery, and I think he was even funnier than the Guardians themselves. Guests are then ushered into a teleportation chamber. You enter into a closed room. During the teleportation sequence, the lights momentarily go out, and when they go back on, you're on the Nova spaceship. It is a real wow moment how your environment around you changed in a flash. This is achieved by the walls of the room lifting up to the ceiling. This is where you're introduced to the villain, a giant celestial who steals the Cosmic Generator. He wants to go back to the dawn of time to erase the existence of all Earthlings. So the Nova Corp calls the Guardians of the Galaxy to save the day. Rocket then hatches a plan to have guests follow the Celestial through jump points until the Guardians can come to save the day. This is all done through a video recording. The ride had an astronomical budget approaching $450 million US, making it the world's most expensive theme park attraction ever. I know it wasn't cheap to bring the actors back, but I wish they had been able to incorporate an animatronic or 2 somewhere in the experience, much like we saw in California's Adventures Guardians of the Galaxy ride. You then have another 10 or so minutes to queue. You are led towards an evacuation chamber. It is a dark and atmospherically lit room. It features a dual load platform to maximize capacity. Then not only features an unload platform, but a dual unload platform. And the ride's fast dispatches too. All bags and loose articles ride with guests, and the simple restraints allow cast members to check them quickly. All through the wait, you'll notice people barely stop moving. This ride is a people eater. Each train holds up to 20 riders. You have 5 cars, each with 2 rows of 2. And with those dual load and unload platforms, plus all the block zones, I've heard this coaster can run up to 8 trains at once. That is insane. At the end of the queue, you are assigned a row, but like most Disney rides, The staff members are happy to take seating requests if you ask nicely. And I highly recommend row 9, which is the front of the back car. This offers both the best visuals and best forces. These are some of the most comfortable coaster trains out there. They are super roomy. You not only have tons of legroom, but the seats are some of the widest on any coaster. Then you're secured by just a lap bar. If you want to maximize your airtime, I would recommend holding onto the restraint once checked by the employee. Otherwise, I found it can lower a bit during the experience. I know not everyone wants to have this ride experience spoiled element by element. I sure didn't before I experienced the ride, so I'll give a high-level overview of the coaster. This ride is just pure fun, and it does so many things well. First, it is glass smooth, which is to be expected of any new Vekoma. 2, it is extremely long. This ride is over 1 mile of track. That is incredible for any ride, especially one entirely indoors. 3, the ride system. This is an ingenious spinning coaster from Vekoma. Rather than rotating the vehicles like a teacup, you are rotated strategically to enhance the specific elements or show scenes. You take some of the hills and helixes backwards, sideways, or even diagonally. I know some were concerned about this ride causing motion sickness. My fiance takes Dramamine anytime we go to a park with crazy coasters, and spinning rides are a kryptonite even with Dramamine. Even without taking Dramamine, she had no trouble with Guardians. Another friend prone to motion sickness had no trouble if she looked forwards at all times. She said she started to feel a bit queasy when she started looking all around her. 4, this coaster is a dynamic experience. The ride is well-paced start to finish. You hold good speed throughout the coaster, and like with Space Mountain, the darkness augments how fast you're actually going. Although this coaster does have an impressive top speed at one point of 60 miles per hour or 97 kilometers per hour, making it the fastest Disney coaster ever. The layout is a tangled mess of track that's impossible to memorize. It is filled with dips giving some floater airtime, and then turns and helixes offering decent positive Gs. It's a beautiful mix of forces, especially since you cannot see them coming in the environment. This coaster honestly reminds me of Fly of Phantasialand in terms of how the layout's set up. Just you're not in the flying position here. 5, the theming. You have star fields, giant screens, and a few practical set pieces that progress the story and offer neat visuals. The story can be a bit tricky to follow when you're riding a coaster as chaotic as this, but on my first ride I was still able to get the gist of it. 6, the audio. In typical Guardians fashion, the ride is reliant on popular old songs. You are randomly assigned one of 6 songs prior to riding: September, Disco Inferno, One Way or Another, I Ran So Far Away, Conga, and Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I have gotten 4 of those songs. The first 4 are excellent. They have the perfect tempo to match the coaster's mayhem, and they just bring a smile to my face. While I have not gotten the last 2, I have heard that Everybody Wants to Rule the World is a noticeably slower song, and from those who've gotten it, they said it doesn't work quite as well on this coaster. And this music is paired by quips here and there from the Guardians. Now I am going to break down the coaster element by element, so skip ahead to the time shown on screen if you want to avoid this. And I want to give a big thanks to Coaster Loopings 360 for allowing me to use their Planet Coaster recreation of the ride's layout. The vehicles aren't shown to spin in that video, but the layout follows the same path. Once dispatched, you round a corner and head up a short lift hill. Along the way, the Guardians again remind you of your mission. Some, like Drax, are more pessimistic than others. You then head through a jump point and see the Celestial. Your vehicles cleverly rotate backwards at this point. I believe the Guardians then blast the cosmic generator from his hands, creating a jump point that blasts you back to the Big Bang. You then launch backwards. It's a fairly weak launch in terms of power and acceleration, but it is very theatric. You have that screen before the launch, and then you move through a tunnel with electrical effects, which looks really neat. And then your song kicks in, which usually elicits a cheer of excitement. You then ascend the ride's largest hill. It's a giant camelback. The top of this hill is funky though. It's slightly banked inwards, and you rotate the apex. You go from seeing darkness to getting flashed by the on-ride photo to ending in a star field. You have absolutely no idea where you're going, and the descent off this camelback gives some decent floater airtime in the back car. especially because you're in such a weird orientation. And then you go into the mid-course. Now the coaster starts to twist around the room as it drops down layer by layer. You then twist off this mid-course brake run, and you'll see a giant space battle between the Guardians and the Celestial off to your right. The size of the screen is astonishing. You then have a small dip giving an okay pop of airtime in the back. Then you have a helix with some force to it, and it feels very fast too. Shortly thereafter, you have another small dip that again gives a little airtime for those in back. You then twist into another mid-course brake run, getting some moderate G's in the way. You then drop 180 degrees to the right and navigate a fantastic dip. The train is oriented diagonally backwards for this, and you get some weird airtime. You get a little bit up front, but it's decent sustained floater airtime up here in the back while you're staring upwards. Guardians then has a series of solidly forceful turns as you wind around the lower levels of the building. You then head through back-to-back jump points. This leads into a second launch, although it feels more like a high-speed booster lift hill. It's another one light on power, but it gives you enough potential energy for an exciting finale. You see the Guardians and Nova Corp containing the Celestial ahead of you, culminating the main story. Then you have an intense downwards helix around a planet. It offers some very strong positive Gs, particularly in the back row, and you are also facing inwards, which makes it feel even odder. This helix is followed by another dip. This one gives a pop of airtime up front, and then those in back get some decent sustained floater airtime once again. You then have a few final turns with some moderate force to them, and then you hit the brake run. There, you get a final video greeting from the Guardians with a joke or two. You then reach the unload platform, ending the 5,577 foot or 1,700 meter long coaster, and is an action-packed ride start to finish. So what would I rate Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind? I would give this coaster a 9.5 out of 10. This is an excellent coaster, and the best at any Disney park. It takes the storytelling Disney is known for, and the zaniest of the Guardians characters, and then it adds them to a coaster layout that honestly will be pretty good on its own. This is a well-paced ride with good positives, some instances of airtime, and fun visuals. The ride feels like a modernized Space Mountain. The only things that could have been better was if the story was a little easier to follow during the coaster sequence, and if there was an animatronic included. But other than that, this is a really impressive ride that'll cater to pretty much any audience. I think this is the best ride at Epcot. Then there are still a few attractions I prefer at Disney, but I know this will be the favorite for many coaster enthusiasts and visitors too. So those are my thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, the incredible roller coaster at Epcot. What are your thoughts on this ride? How do you think it stacks up to the other coasters at Disney World? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.